Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You are watching the Paris Fintech Forum Communities video interview series. I'm Elliott Gotkine, and today I'm joined by the co-founder and CEO of Stoïk, Jules Veyrat. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, Elliott, for having me today.
Okay, so before we get cracking, let's learn a little bit more about Stoïk. So, Jules, tell us what you do and how you do it.
Well, Stok is a company I launched 4 years ago, which is specialized on one thing, which is cybersecurity for SMEs, small, mid-sized companies. The originality of what we do is that we have as a core job insurance. So we provide to small, mid-sized companies insurance policies to cover them in the event of a cyber attack. And what we do differently than typical insurers is that we provide to SMEs cybersecurity software and cybersecurity expertise on top of insurance for free. Because what our insureds want is to have insurance plus security, and what we want is to have insured companies that don't get attacked. So the more we can provide on top of insurance with cybersecurity, the better for them, the better for me, and therefore everyone's happy. And that's Stoïk in a few words. It's cybersecurity plus insurance combined.
And how's business?
Well, business so far so good. I started in France with 3 co-founders mid-2021. We raised funds. We made a few big partnerships with large insurance companies, and we started in France beginning of 2022. First year was great in France, so we expanded to Germany in 2023. First months in Germany were great, so we expanded to Austria and Spain more recently. And today, Stoïk is a company of 110 people across 5 countries, and we grow 200% year over year. So the first few years are pretty good.
You mentioned some of the countries you've expanded to: Germany, Austria, Spain, as well as France, of course. What are your plans for the future? The whole of Europe and then maybe the US?
I'm more into non-English speaking countries because English-speaking countries are under a lot of competition. Many players in the insurance industry focusing on those because comes from the US and try to go to England or to New Zealand. So for me, the most interesting markets are the ones in which you need to adapt to the local culture, speak the local language. That's what we've done in France, what we've done in Germany, Spain, and so on. So I'm more to start focusing on continental Europe. This year, we will make announcements related to Benelux, where we are going to start. We want to go to the Nordics. We want to go even more into Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, and then maybe look at Latin America, Southern Asia, Middle East. These are the territories that I'm more interested in.
And if I'm not mistaken, you raised some 25 million euros in 2024, and I think 11 million before that, including from Andreessen Horowitz. Are you good for now in terms of funding, or are there more fundraising plans afoot that we should expect, market conditions notwithstanding?
Yeah, I mean, we've been lucky to be able to raise funds, let's say, pretty easily and with very nice funds since the beginning of Stoïk. So we've raised a total of 50 million since we started Stoïk, Andreessen Horowitz being one of the main ones, as well as Munich Re Ventures, which is the fund of the largest reinsurer in the world. I've always tried to raise money when I didn't need it, not to be in a greedy situation where I need the capital. And the goal for me is to have cash in the bank account to be able to expand as I would like to do without having too much cash pressure. So far, I have more than enough. I could stay profitable with the money, be profitable with the money that I have today in the bank account. Yet, if I want to keep expanding and open more markets than the ones I have today, I might want to raise extra capital maybe in 26, maybe in 27. No rush about it. But yes, there might be a Series C somewhere in the future, but not in the short term.
And I mean, just in terms of your sense of how the market is right now in terms of raising funds, because we know that there is still a dearth of IPOs and the like, and amid a fair amount of uncertainty, is it fair to say that maybe cybersecurity shares with artificial intelligence this kind of sweet spot where it's kind of seen as a must-have, and therefore there are exceptions to investing with other. Whereas with other fintech or other fintechs or other companies, startups, investors might be a little bit more reluctant to go in right now.
Well, when I started Stoïk 2021, 2022, I was considered to be in the trendy sector of activity with cybersecurity. And very recently, a large VC told me I was a traditional sector of activity, which is traditional being everything non-AI. So, yeah, I feel like I'm in a good position because the cybersecurity need is not going to decrease anytime soon. So I see a lot of interest in what we do, and I've not struggled to find funds so far. Of course, in the Insurtech ecosystem, we would like to see more IPOs. There's been one recently. I would like to see some players that do the same as us in the US IPO to show the example. But I'm early enough to find capital when I need it, even without doing artificial intelligence. So I'm in the middle situation, not struggling, not in the hype of AI, but I think in a pretty good one.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about AI later on. So look, we've heard a bit about Stoïk. Let's learn a little bit more now about Jules. So, Jules, you co-founded Stoïk in 2021. Both you and the company are still pretty young, and I think as we were chatting earlier, before that, you were working on a philosophy magazine. How do you go from writing about philosophy to founding an Insurtech cybersecurity startup?
Well, I'm not a philosopher, and I've never written about philosophy. I have a business background, and after my graduation, I wanted to work with philosophers. So yeah, I spent 4 years working for a philosophy magazine. That's great, and I was more acting as a sales B2B sales for this magazine. I launched a new activity for them. But of course, the speed of this company's growth was not as fast as what I have today. And after a few years, after 4 years, I felt like I wanted something maybe more ambitious or quicker to do. So I left this company, wanted to launch one. And to be honest, I was pretty blind or agnostic about what I wanted to do, except two things that were very important for me for launching a company. One, build something ambitious. I wanted to build something that grows fast and never stops accelerating, and that has the potential to go big quickly. So that was the first criteria. And second criteria was to do it with people that I like, build a company with a culture that's positive, where people are happy to get this intense challenge together. Yeah, and based on those two criteria, I could have done basically anything. But the only topic I've been looking into is the cybersecurity need for SMEs, because it was very obvious at that moment that there was a massive need. So many SMEs get attacked and just don't know how to get protected against it. So I decided to deep dive into this topic, and I loved the approach with insurance plus cybersecurity. So I decided to go with it beginning of 2021. Then took me a few months to find my co-founders that had the skills that I don't have. But after a few months, we decided to go, and no regrets since that moment.
Okay, but I'm pretty sure that there is a connection between the philosophy magazine and your company now, because one of the few philosophers that I've actually read in any detail is Seneca, who was famously a Stoic. And you got to tell me that is surely why the company is called Stoic, right?
Yeah, when I launched, when I decided to go with insurance plus cybersecurity in the same company, I was looking for a philosophical concept to find a name. So I've searched into many philosophers, and then came back the idea of Stoicism. Stoicism basically is you should learn to distinguish between what depends on you, that you should try to control, or at which that you can control, and what doesn't depend on you, that you should accept that you can't control, and distinguish those two. And what we do with Stoic is basically help companies reduce their risk with cybersecurity for what they can do, and accept that there's part of the risk that they can't control. There will always be a risk to get attacked, and therefore transfer the risk to insurance. And that's a good metaphor to Stoicism. That's how I came to the name.
Okay, and I suppose when you're not reading Proust or talking about it or pondering the meaning of existence, you're a bit of a triathlete and even done a couple of Ironmen, I understand.
Well, that was before Stoic because I'm now the father of two young kids, 1 and 3 years old, plus a company that's growing pretty fast. So less time for sport. But yeah, before Stoic, I've always loved to get intense challenges. This is one. I mean, this is two: fatherhood and leading a company. So that's even a lot to handle. But yeah, before this one, I've made an Ironman in 2017. So exercising for a year to be able to run like the full Excel Ironman and done a few marathons. But yeah, I'm looking forward to starting again doing sports, but that won't be like real sports. That won't be before the end of Stoic or my kids get older.
Excellent. All right. So look, Jules, a key part of this interview is to get your take on the future of finance. But first, we are going to take a very quick break, after which we are going to continue our conversation with the co-founder and CEO of Stoïk, Jules Veyrat. Welcome back, and don't forget, if you're not already a full member of our community, everything you need to join can be found at www.parisfintechforum.com. Okay, and now, Jules, let's talk about the future of finance. So, Jules, look, trade wars, stock market volatility, slowing economic growth, worrying times for many ordinary businesses and fintechs. But our companies, and I touched on this just a bit before, but our companies involved in cybersecurity and cyber insurance somewhat immune, perhaps not as much as artificial intelligence related companies, but in the sense that, you do offer something that people really can't do without, even if they wanted to. By law, many companies have to have, security in place to avoid the risk of hacks and whatnot, not least because, being hacked can obviously be an existential threat to their business.
Are we immune? Of course not. When SMEs suffer, well, the budget is decreasing, and therefore there's a lower likelihood that they can pay for an additional service. And yet, I consider there are two types of rationale for buying something new. One is desire to get something better life, let's say, and the second one is fear of a risk. For example, in my previous life, working for the magazine of philosophy, I was selling desire that philosophy would make the life better inside the companies. And when things get bad, I feel like it's getting much harder to sell desire and much easier to sell fear. That's unfortunate at some point, of course, because I don't want to play with fear of people and I don't want to do it at all. But cyber risk is a real risk, and executives know it's one. So when they pay for an insurance, and on top, when they know that insurance comes with cybersecurity, they feel like we are delivering them from a fear that they had, and they have to pay for it. So in the end, yes, we are not suffering that much from the economic volatility or the downturn that we can see in the markets. I don't see much of an impact of everything that's happening on my business. The business is growing very well because the fear is growing, and it's right to grow because the number of cyber attacks that we see, that SMEs suffer, is growing. So yeah, and unfortunately, I would say, I mean, good for my business, but unfortunately for the economic fabric in Europe, the cyber business is not going to decrease anytime soon.
And of course, it's not just SMEs. I suppose they would be seen to be even more vulnerable than larger companies, because larger companies have greater resources, even though that also, I suppose, makes them perhaps a bigger targets. But, it was revealed in early May that the major hacks we saw on one of the biggest British retailers, Marks and Spencer, was due to, I think it's called social engineering, where IT help desks were kind of duped into changing passwords, which enabled hackers to then get into the system there. So I suppose humans are still the weakest link in so many of these situations. And does that just mean that the bad guys will always find a way, no matter how much insurance or protection SMEs or larger companies take out?
Yeah, I mean, yes. That's why you need security and insurance. You need to reduce the technical risk. You need to reduce the human risk by training your people as well. But you won't get to zero risk whatever you do. So that's why insurance is coming. Insurance is here to support you if a cyber attack happens and to pay back for the loss that you have consequently to a cyber attack. We focus only on SMEs. I mean, SMEs being any company from 0 to 1 billion in turnover, so not the large corporates. And what's interesting is to know that, of course, corporates, when they get hacked, everyone knows about it, and it costs a lot. But most of the cyber attacks are targeted to small companies because information systems are weaker for small companies. So the workload to get a gain for a hacker is lower, and therefore the profitability of their efforts is higher. And the way they proceed is very different. When you want to target a large company, what you try to do is spend weeks trying to get into the information system and really target one dedicated company. While when they attack SMEs, they just target thousands of companies in the meantime, and see where they can put a foot in the door. But blindly, they don't care what's the SME behind. They don't target one specific SME. They just target thousands of SMEs with a similar information system and just try to do social engineering or vulnerability scanning and try to get into an information system. And then independently on the type of company they have, they try to maximize the gain they can have from the SME. So that makes the two types of companies as vulnerable, because the hackers are actively trying to get into both companies.
And I mean, what for you is the biggest risk out there today in terms of potential losses? Is it some kind of catastrophic attack on, utilities, electricity systems, or what for you is I suppose keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. If we take risks one by one, like company after company, today Stoïk has a bit more than 6,000 insureds. We'll have 10,000 by the end of the year. So we have everyday companies suffering ransomware, and ransomware is bad because it costs a lot to the company in terms of business interruption and the cost in gross margin that they are losing day after day by being interrupted. So that's like one by one risk. But what keeps an insurer awake at night is the systemic part of the risk. What systemic risk could happen to our insured that would make not just one ransomware, but 50 or 100 or 2,000 ransomware at the same time. And that's the question is, what dependency do companies have between themselves from their IT side? How do they depend one to each other, and how can we mitigate this dependency? Most of this dependency is on the cloud providers. If you have AWS, GCP, Azure, and you are hosted in the same place, usually it's not all hosted in the same one. So it's not all the companies AWS depend on the same cloud provider, but some are stored in the same place. And if one gets hacked, then you can have a systemic risk that's happening. So that's one thing that keeps me awake at night.
And I suppose in other fields, consumers are increasingly turning to kind of analog technologies kind of going back to things like whether it's vinyl records or fountain pens, and there seems to be this kind of a desire to have kind of more physical things, I suppose, from a consumer perspective. I mean, should businesses kind of be doing? I'm not saying they should go back to pen and paper, although I do recall there was a bank hack where some customers did have to start going back to pen and paper. But I mean, is kind of going more analog perhaps one possibility for companies to do to try to reduce that risk, even if it makes other processes less efficient?
I mean, it's a backup plan that they should be prepared with. I don't think the future is to get prepared this way. We are going to be in an increasingly digital world, and we know about it. And every company depends on the digital sphere. So I think what companies have to do is to secure their backups, make sure that they have a crisis plan to know how they're going to react quickly and efficiently if something happens. That's the main priorities for all of them, to activate MFA, to make sure that they train their people within the company in recognizing what seems to be social engineering and what seems to be fair. That's how it's going to evolve with time. More training, more security, and not going back to the good old days.
But I mean, look, there has been some talk at the same time of, I think, quantum computing almost rendering encryption technologies useless at some point in time. I'm sure by then new encryption technologies will have been developed. But I mean, is that something that companies should be worried about? Or is that just one for like 5, 10, 20 years down the line, like self-driving cars and moving to Mars?
I would say option B, which means doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. Of course, it's going to happen, but it's too early to tell because there's a lot of saying about quantum and so on. We are monitoring it closely, but we've never seen a claim as a consequence of quantum computing, for example. So for now, we haven't seen a lot of changes, even with AI. I mean, AI is making social engineering more sophisticated, so you can see more fraud cases, for example, suffered by our insureds, but not that many changes in the past few years about the types of claims that we have. Most of the time, it's human vulnerability or technical vulnerability leading to a ransomware, pretty typical one. We're not seeing anything fancy, but as you say, we should keep monitoring those new threats continuously because that's the future, and cyber risk, that's what makes it very difficult to handle, will keep evolving again and again, year after year.
And you mentioned earlier that Stoïk is no longer in the kind of trendy space because you're not an artificial intelligence company. But of course, I suppose every company these days has to be an artificial intelligence company. How is it? How are you using it? And how is the industry as a whole, cybersecurity and insurers? How is artificial intelligence being harnessed to, I don't know, make policies more personalized, more accurate, and also to, of course, boost efficiency and I suppose, reduce the likelihood of claims?
Yeah, I would say there are two ways. One, in the cybersecurity softwares that we provide to our insureds, those softwares use a lot of AI. We use, for example, third-party software like CrowdStrike or SentinelOne EDRs, and those are heavily relying on artificial intelligence to be able to detect proactively suspicious behaviors on a computer or an endpoint of an insured, and that's, of course, artificial intelligence is changing the risk, but also changing the defense. And we are using artificial intelligence to make the defense we provide to our insureds much better. That's one side. The other side is how do we get better internally at doing our job thanks to artificial intelligence. We have, for example, hundreds of brokers, insurance brokers, asking for questions to us on how to improve their contract to their customers, on how to change a policy, on how to amend the contract, and so on. And those hundreds of questions are all data that we are using to feed LLMs and to get accurate answers thanks to artificial intelligence. So we are very cautious about it. It takes time to use artificial intelligence in a consistent way. But of course, we know we are going to be able to handle accurately volumes of requests, for example, from brokers, thanks to artificial intelligence in the future. And we have many teams already working on it.
Okay, so look, Jules, it's time now for our round of rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I am.
Excellent. So we just want one-word answers, okay? And I'm going to ask you as many questions as I can in 90 seconds. And when my alarm goes off, that is when we will finish. So without further ado, away we go. Okay, so what fintech segment has the biggest potential over the next 5 years?
Artificial intelligence.
What is the biggest pain point in your everyday financial life that you would like to see resolved?
Broker education.
Are bank bosses ready for the AI revolution?
Not my sector.
Are customers ready for the AI revolution?
They will get ready.
Have regulations in Europe and the United States kept pace with all the new possibilities and behaviors we're seeing in the financial industry?
Not too bad.
Have you personally ever invested in crypto?
Yes.
Are physical points of sales part of the future of finance?
Yes.
Are bank branches part of the future of finance?
Not my sector.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least likely, 10 the most likely, how likely is it that in the next 10 years, one of the neobanks will be as profitable as a top-tier legacy bank?
8.
That central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, will become a mainstream reality in the United States or Europe?
8.
That you'll be able to open a crypto account at a top-tier bank?
10.
That SWIFT will still be the main tool for transferring money around the world?
5. I don't know.
That a new rival will emerge to challenge Visa and MasterCard?
10.
Okay. And on that optimistic note, we are out of time for our round of rapid-fire questions and for our conversation. So I really just want to thank you, Jules Veyrat, co-founder and CEO of Stoïk, for joining me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elliott.
And for everyone watching, we will be back again next time with another big name from the world of finance and technology. We do hope you'll be able to join us again then. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the Paris Fintech Forum YouTube channel and to follow us on X at Paris Fin Forum. That's all for now. See you next time. Bye-bye.